Welcome to the London Horror Movie Club. I'm horror writer Lauren Jane Barnett.
And I'm Chris Sapikowski, Lauren's older brother, and I've been watching horror movies since I was 8.
Join us as we talk about the wild, weird, and wonderful horror films set in England's eerie capital.
Welcome back, listeners. This episode comes out a few days before April Fool's Day, so it's perfect timing because we have with us today half of the award-winning comedy duo of Electric Head, as well as the wildly talented and versatile actor who's appeared in more than 30 films, including recent horror films like Video Shop Tales of Terror, Power Tool Cheerleaders versus the Boy Band of the Screeching Dead, and pocket film of Superstitions. Welcome, Cy Henty.
Hello, I've been told to go. Hello. Is that how everyone starts there?
Jazz hands are always preferred.
Yeah, oh good. That's what I like. That's what I like to hear.
So it's obvious question to ask you straight off the bat. You do comedy and you do horror. Which came first?
Oh, yeah, it's a chicken and an egg thing, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, to be honest, my interest in horror stems from when I was a really, really young. So yeah, and actually I've got some little props with me so yeah, I used to listen to these, which were Christopher Lee reading Edgar Allan Poe, and that's how I used to go to sleep as a child. And I just loved his voice. And it not that it kind of lulled me off to sleep, it kind of terrified me, to be honest. But yeah, so yeah, and I used to watch Hammer horror movies, and late at night on a little black and white TV that I had in my bedroom when my parents didn't realise that I was watching them. Twin Peaks as well. I used to watch, which was pretty horrific. I understand there's a horror element to Lynch, certainly with his the sort of weirdness and the dream kind of nightmare scenarios that he gets into. And also I've got this. Look, I've got too many props. Stephen King, which this is the original copy I had. This front cover, because as a kid I was a real nerd, so I had really big kind of glasses. I had a silver tooth because I knocked my tooth out when I was very small, and a kind of bowl haircut, and then I got acne really young as well. So I was I really related to the central character of Archie in there. It is Archie, isn't it? Yeah. So I loved that. I used to read a lot of Stephen King, so there was a lot of horror influences in my life. But yeah, then I ended up doing comedy, so I don't know what happened there.
What happened? Yes. So the change to comedy was just get one of your buddies and want to make each other laugh, or what?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had my first double act. See how many props I've got. That's my first double act, was called Sam and Cy. And Sam I met at university, and we used to actually when we were cleaning the flat, we used to hide from each other because we liked the Peter Sellers Pink Panther movies. So I'd hide in a closet, and then I'd just jump out and do karate on him in various guises and stuff. And we developed the double act from there. But actually, I always think there's a real big crossover between comedy and horror. So I do tend to enjoy comedy horror. And I've been in quite a few kind of comedy horrors over the years. I'll stop babbling now, sorry.
No, it's
good. So yeah, I think there's a big crossover between comedy and horror. Yeah, and that's the kind of comedy I like. I suppose I quite kind of like dark comedy. So like The League of Gentlemen, Psychoville, Inside Number 9, and then Black Mirror as well. I always find is often very funny. It's probably, maybe it's not meant to be, but this certainly makes me laugh.
I'm a huge Black Mirror fan. What's your favorite story on the Black Mirror?
I knew someone was going to ask this. Now I've got to try and think what was my favorite story. Jeez. I tend to enjoy all of them, really, and I think the fact that Charlie Brooker, I really enjoyed the last series. Now I'm trying to remember any episodes. I know I really enjoyed it because a lot of them were written by Charlie Brooker, and I tend to enjoy more the stuff that he's written himself. But there's kind of like always a bizarre twist on the future. I think there was one where they were in a gym and they're all on bikes or something, and there was
got the points, yeah.
I really enjoyed that one. God, I'm just trying to. There was one where there was a guy who was an AI, like her partner had died, and then they downloaded his social media profile into him, and then he came back as like an AI and stuff like that. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed all of them. I think.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah, they're amazing. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the sort of comedy that I would aim to write. Although you kind of look at it and you think, God, he's so goddamn clever. I wish I could write something that was as clever and as that. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, there's certainly a lot of dark humor in that, which I enjoy. And then, but also, I think kitsch kind of humor, like looking back at. I'll watch a lot of old Hammer horror movies and things like that, which do make you chuckle in retrospect. I think, especially with the bright red blood and and things. Yeah, so yeah, I think there's a big crossover definitely between horror and comedy, and I think what me and Al do is try and do quite. It often gets quite dark and surreal because his influences. That's my new double act, the Electric Ed, which you mentioned. I say new. It's almost been 20 years, but yeah, his influences are very horror based, and he's a horror film director himself. So yeah, we do tend to go down some very dark and surreal pathways, I think.
Nice. Do you want to talk? I've been lucky enough to actually see you guys perform. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you guys do as comedians together?
Yeah, so we do both. I mean, we won the award for scripted comedy, but that was which is kind of like my magnum opus, I would say, which is doing a comedy version of Dante's Inferno, or well, Dante's Divine Comedy. So we did Dante's Inferno first, and then I'm currently working on Purgatory. And then after that, I'm going to be working on Paradiso. But yeah, it's I always get that wrong. Is it just it is Paradiso? I do know it really. Which we're calling Paradisco, and I'm hoping it's going to be like a musical kind of version. But yeah, so that's obviously got horror aspects to it. You know what I mean? I mean, Go to Hell, the Inferno one that we wrote that won the prize, was definitely very dark. Yeah, and explored different levels of a modern day Dante's Inferno. So we had the hell of social reality TV, and then we had the kind of like hell of social media, and like all those different levels of things that people could relate to in modern society. In terms of the impro, which we do, oh, hang on, got a poster. Yeah, this is which is called improvised head, which is quite a turned out to be quite a rude title, but we didn't mean it in that way. But yeah, yeah. So that tends to it's a two-man completely improvised long form impro show based on suggestions from the audience, things they're either looking forward to or dreading, or a mixture of both, and then we kind of imagine what could happen in their future, I suppose. And it tends to go really. I mean, we did one quite recently, which was a woman who was going to see Beatrix Potter, travel up north and see where Beatrix Potter lived, and all that kind of thing. And then that ended up being sort of like turning into a Beatrix Potter theme park, in which all the animals were then really evil and they were attacking people in the theme park. And so, yeah, it starts off and you think, oh, Beatrix Potter, oh, that's nice. And then it tends to be like, there's all, and look, we've had quite a few onstage sacrifices, sort of folk horror Wicker Man stuff happening at the end. Which is always nice.
What do you prefer more? Do you prefer doing the live improvisation shows or improv shows, or do you prefer doing more film?
Both, definitely both equally. Yeah. So I mean, I love doing horror films, and I was really lucky. Well, it was actually through the comedy that I got into acting in horror films. So Pat Higgins, who's a well-known UK independent horror director. I think you've had him on, haven't you? Actually,
we have. Yeah, just before Powerful Cheerleaders came out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so yeah, me and Pat have kind of collaborated for many years, and I've been lucky. But he used to run a comedy club many years ago in Southend called Jinx Comedy Club, and me and Sam went there and did a gig there. And then Pat really liked us, so he had us back to headline. And then when he was making Trash House, got that here. When he was making Trash House, the lead, or one of the lead actors, kind of pulled out the day before he was going to shoot. And he was like, shit, what am I going to do? And there was an actress on set who knew me, didn't know that Pat knew me, and she said, I've got a friend, Cy, who might be able to do it if we can ring. And Pat was like, not Cy Henty, he's just been in my comedy club. He's like, yeah, we'll have him. So he then phoned me up and said, do you want to come and do the film tomorrow? I was like, shit. So then I had to learn the script on the way down on the train to Southend, and then step in and do the role, which was great fun. The problem was that Al, my comedy partner, was DOP on it, and he's Scottish, and I decided to do a Scottish accent. So he instantly hated me. So he's like, who's this twat doing this? Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Absolutely, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, he said, who's this twat trying to do a Scottish accent? And he fucking hated me. And because Pat had insisted I wore sunglasses the whole way through it as the character, Al just thought that I thought I was a big star in the sunglasses. But I was like, Pat asked me to do that. I didn't wear sunglasses. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like I came in and thought, oh yeah, hey. But yeah, so Al actually we didn't form my double act after that, because he absolutely detested me. He thought I was a complete idiot. Yeah. He hated my Scottish accent, which I always insist on trying to squeeze into all our shows now, just to irritate him. And B, he thought that I was wearing the sunglasses because I thought I was some kind of big star. I was actually terrified, to be honest.
Did you find it so nerve-wracking because you had to learn the script in a short period of time, or was there something else that was making you nervous?
No, it was more. It was nerve-wracking in that, and I still sometimes get that, to be honest. In that you're stepping in front of the camera, you've got to remember your lines, obviously. Back then, I guess I'd only done one film, like feature film, which was an odd one, which was called Crust, and it was about a giant boxing shrimp. It wasn't a horror; it was a comedy. But I didn't realise because I'd only performed on stage, really. I hadn't done much film stuff, apart from making some films myself at university and things. That obviously there's the continuity kind of stuff. So I used to performing on stage. I was playing a TV host in it. I went on. They had like a couple of hundred people as an audience, all extras, and all the cameras, and it was a massive set they'd built and all the rest of it. And I kind of like had to step on and play this game show host, which I did. And then I did it, and then they were like, cut. Okay, all right, yeah, we need to go again. I started doing it, and they were like, cut. And the continuity woman said, no, when you did it before, you raised your right hand, then your left, then you stepped slightly to the left, then to the right. And I was like, shit, I've got to remember all this. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I've never done that before. Do you know what I mean? So, it suddenly occurred to me, obviously, they've got to cut it all. So whenever obviously there's a little bit of leeway, but whenever you're doing actions or doing it, your facial expressions and the way you perform it has to be pretty much very similar every single take they do. And so, that aspect of it kind of scared me when I went to do Pats. I was like, shit. So I was like, move as little as possible, just kind of turn your head slightly, turning to the left, okay. And then, so I'm a bit wooden in that. No, I'm not really. I'm only kidding.
Do you find that working in front of a live audience, you can kind of get a feel for if what you're trying to portray is hitting or better than on a film set, because one's in front of a camera and one's in front of the audience?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, that is the one difference, Chris. Yeah, I think is that you obviously, when you're doing it in front of a live audience, you're aware whether you're getting laughs or not. You know what I mean? Although the thing is, sometimes it's nice with the improv when people are quiet and you can get into a really dark emotional moment. So it doesn't have to be laugh. It's quite nice, but you're reacting and interacting with how they're reacting to you doing stuff. Whereas with a film, it's in that way it's kind of cold. You do it and you don't know whether you're putting in a good performance really until afterwards, when say the director comes up and says, "Oh, that was great," or somebody says, "Oh, that was brilliant," or whatever, and then for me, I'm kind of like, "Oh, thank goodness," you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, directors are so different, aren't they? I mean, some will say very little. Alex Patterson Churchyard, for instance, I worked with recently, hopefully working with him again quite soon, is very laid back, very relaxed and chilled, and kind of yeah, he'll give you a couple of pointers, but do you know what I mean? Like Al, my comedy partner, I've been in a couple of things that he's shot, and he's harsher because he's my friend, and do you know what I mean? Because he's my comedy partner. I guess he realizes it. He says, "No, bring it up a bit. No, it needs to be that. You did this like that. No, 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 no." So he tends to be a bit more harsh. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Pat again. Yeah, Pat Higgins again is very laid back as a director, which I love. Yeah, he kind of just lets me kind of get. Or he trusts in me, which I like, which I really like actually. I mean, that's really nice. If someone trusts in you, then you kind of think, oh, they believe in me. But inside your head, you're kind of thinking, shit, really? like doing the Irish accent in Killer Killer. I did, which was that was kind of. I thought it was a kind of brave decision. But the only thing Pat said to me is, he said, "It's fine as long as it's consistent. It's fine." Do you know what I mean? But another guy who was working on it when I turned up and started doing it, it was a comedian. He just said to me at one point, he said, "So, Cy," he said, "whereabouts in Ireland are you from?" So I said, I said, "Yeah, well, it's a little village, yeah, and it's just outside. You probably won't know of it. It's quite a distinct accent." In my head, I was thinking, shit, is this gonna? And even now, I kind of watch it back, and I think, God, that Irish accent. And then I watch it again, and I think, oh no, it's okay. And then I watch it again, and I think, no, I shouldn't have done it. Pat, why didn't you tell me? But I don't know. Jury's out on that one. Although Al was nice about it, so it can't be that bad.
Yeah,
there you go.
He wanted to know where you were from. That's got to be means you did good.
Well, maybe. Yeah, I think the insinuation was, that he didn't think I sounded like I was from anywhere in Ireland. Basically.
The difference between American and British sarcasm is that right there. American goes, "Oh,
Okay.
that's kind of a compliment."
Yeah.
He was like, "Where are you from?" But it was funny because we had a couple of great actors on the film. One called James Gavaz, who sadly died a little while after filming Killer Killer, and one called Dutch Door Boys, and they were pretty tough guys. And very kind of outspoken and pro the actors as well, you know. And I was walking back to the train station with them after the guy had said that, and they were both like, "Yeah, what a," it's basically, I won't go into exactly what they said, but they're like, "Yeah, what's he talking about? Where you from?" And I thought they were going to like beat him up. You know, it's like, no, it's okay, guys. But,
Oh, that's quite sweet. You mentioned you've worked with so many different directors, and how do you sort of prepare yourself for working with different people who you haven't yet? Do you just sort of go, "Oh, it'll be fine," or do you like try and figure out what they're like? What's your process, I guess?
no, yeah, I never do. No, I just think they'll do what they do, really. Do you know what I mean? And I'm always keen to listen to their ideas and and collaborate. I think is the most important thing for me, and because they've all got such different styles. I mean, yeah, recently worked with Fausti on Burnt Flowers, and that was and I found him quite intimidating. But this was the thing, not off camera, on camera, because he was also playing a role in it. And I think the idea is that his character and my character were kind of like enemies, and that he had the power, and my role was completely non-verbal, and that I'd never done before. So that was kind of weird, it had to all be in the facial expressions. And he was like at the end of the bar playing his character, who was kind of giving me the evils. But obviously he's the director as well. And I think, am I doing this right? Is this, I'm trying to, I think, God. But then off camera, obviously, him and Lou are lovely. And and it was a lovely set to be on. but I think, yeah, the way in which he worked, I think he wanted to create a little bit of tension, certainly when he was in it, because that worked for my character and his character and the tension between us. But yeah, yeah, that was really interesting and challenging as well. In that, obviously, I didn't say anything in that one, so it was all about kind of like the eyes and then you kind of think, oh, I don't want to overdo it, so you know, it ends up like some sort of Laurel and Hardy thing, and you know, kind of do. Yeah, but yeah, that was great. But yeah, no, I've been lucky enough to more recently, because obviously in the early noughties I did a lot of films with Pat Higgins, and then one with Al, who's my comedy partner now as well, which was part of Battlefield Death Tales, which I think became Nazi Zombie Death Tales due to a distribution kind of thing. But yeah, I did that one I did with Al. But yeah, then it was really lovely recently to get back into it, and that was really Tom Lee Rutter who contacted me to do Pocket Film Superstitions, and just sent me a message and said, "Do you want to come up and play Vivian Stanshaw for a day in a pith helmet, like being an old-fashioned explorer?" I was like, I mean, the questions in the answers in the question, really. I was like, yeah, I can't think of anything better than doing that, to be honest. So yeah, that was lovely. Again, a comedy horror. Well, that aspect of it is, the whole film is not. It's got sort of ups and downs within it. Yeah.
No, well, I was just thinking that so many of the films that you've had have been so different. Some Bird Flowers, you're obviously you're very quiet, and it's a more sort of serious role, and you've got Pocket Film, which is out now, and it's a very sort of comedy thing. And then you've got is it Deadly Designs? I'm gonna
Oh,
blank.
Deadly Display, yeah,
Deadly
yeah.
Display, which is very, very verbal, very intense, and lots of highs and lows.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of like, were there parts of it that were more fun to do with one than the other because they were so different?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I wouldn't say Deadly Display was fun. To be honest, the thing was like getting into the because I knew Steve Sibley had based it on a Giallo film, which I watched and things. Yeah, and I've done some. I've been working on a long-term project with him, which is called Falcon the Slayer, which is kind of yeah, I think it will definitely have comic elements in it, in a classic sort of Steve Sibley way, but it's kind of epic and amazing. But yeah, I have to play it straight. But yeah, there's a lot of laughs and fun and different things. And I get on very well with Steve and Ken, who I play opposite in it and stuff. And yeah, it was lovely, good fun running around in the woods. I was uncomfortable at times, do you know what I mean? But it was still fun. But Deadly Display, I was thinking about playing it. I didn't know what Steve had come up with, so I was going to play it in a trilby. I was thinking a big black coat. Do you know what I mean? I do a really kind of over the top. I was thinking, this is my moment to be Christopher Lee. I can do a kind of deep voice, and all this kind of thing. And then Steve said, no, I want you to play it close to yourself. And I was like, yeah, but the guy's a psychopath. What are you trying to say about me? And he was like, no, it needs to be close to yourself. So that was actually quite intense and quite difficult to because I hope I'm not a psychopath. At least I'm not aware of it. But yeah, it was a bit of it screwed with your mind a little bit to be kind of close to me, but then to be horrific and have that change in it. And obviously Bella's a brilliant actress, but she's quite also a little bit shorter than me, and I'm kind of looming over her at points, and there are points in it in which I'm very nasty, and then after that, because I come from Portsmouth, I'd go home and I was staying at my mum's, and then that was kind of trying to get out of the psychopath kind of headspace, and I think, oh, hi mum, she's like, oh, tea and cakes, and I'm like, oh yeah. But inside you've been this horrible kind of psycho all day. So that was actually, really intense, quite an intense experience for me to do that, and pushed myself a little bit harder than some of the other roles that I've played that have been a bit easier, I suppose. Although I really do love like becoming other characters. That I find really joyful.
in Deadly Display, you're being a psychopath. Is it harder to ramp yourself up to play that role and to get into that mindset, or is it harder? You were talking about trying to, like, at the end of the day, kind of get that out of your, like,
Yeah.
get the role out of you. Is it harder to go into it or to get out of it?
Yeah, really good question, Chris, actually. I don't know. I think equal. I think equally for me. I think I do. I would say, yeah, I definitely immerse myself into a character. Yeah, and so I do. Yeah, I do pretty much become it. Uh, which I enjoy because it is kind of like it's an escape thing, and I think I did that since I was a kid. Do you know what I mean? I'd be kind of in the bathroom mirror, pretending to be James Bond. Hence, I just practiced lifting this eyebrow for ages, or because I'd always play different characters, and I've always done that in the comedy as well. Play sort of different characters, whether that be, an elderly pensioner or whether it be someone else, whatever it is. I kind of become, I would say, I mean, that's, something I've got used to doing over the years, becoming someone else. I really enjoy the becoming someone else. But yeah, like you say, it is difficult. It can be difficult to become someone else. It can also be difficult to not then be somebody else as well. It's like there is a transitional period. I suppose it does depend on, yeah, I mean, some characters obviously are easier to become than others, I think. Like the character I'm playing in Falcon Slayer, even though he's a Victorian time traveler, he's kind of, although I'm not saying I'm a really lovely fella or anything, but he's kind of nice and gentle and trying to help people out, and he's not. Do you know what I mean? He's not essentially an evil character. He's just kind of like the kind of everyman in some ways. He's nicer, so I do find it a little bit easier to become him than I did to become Edward in Deadly Display, for sure. I'm just trying to think what other roles that I've found it quite difficult to become people in.
Do you mind if I ask about your character in Video Shop Tales of Terror? Because for anyone who hasn't seen it, that's a very extreme, big character.
Yeah, that was one that I did actually. Yeah, I related to, and I could see what Tom was trying to do with that, because he's a disillusioned writer and film director, I guess, who's been kind of, and what he thought was his kind of magnum opus himself, like this vampire film he'd made had basically been cut to shreds by a producer, and to make it more commercially viable, and he'd ruined the film essentially, and so he hated this producer. But there was obviously there was a comic element to that role as well. But I could also see where Tom was coming from, in that I wanted to play it northern, because Benny Southpaw, who's kind of like my nemesis in the film, was like a southern Essex kind of white boy character, he's like that. And I thought there is an element of north versus south in it, in that sort of like, you've got the London kind of big London producer or whatever it is, and then you've got the northern filmmaker who's trying to do something that he really believes in, that's his vision. And I kind of thought, obviously, that there's a little bit of autobiographical stuff with Tom in there. Sorry, Tom. No, I'm sure that there definitely is. So yeah, I did. Yeah, I did a little self-tape for it. I wanted to check with Tom. But also the guy in it likes a drink, as do I. And do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people have lived in that kind of, when things artistically aren't going right, and clinging on to being a kind of starving artist, which I did for many years of my life, but not letting go of being an artist can be quite hard. So there's a lot of stuff in there that I could really relate to. The guy's disillusionment. I think at that point that he kind of lived in a bachelor pad, and his wife had run off with somebody else. The producer, Benny Southpaw. I've lived in you know, in a bachelor pad and had relationships that had broken up, and do you know what I mean? And struggled on trying to be an artist and not made any money out of it, and you know, and all those kind of things. So there was a lot in there for me to think, oh yeah, I've been here, you know, and not in a bad way, because that's kind of like, I suppose that's the sort of transitions that we go through being creative artists in the modern world. You know, is that whole thing of, you know, oh, why don't you get a proper job, or you know, and then you're kind of like, oh God, maybe I should, I don't know. But yeah, there was all those elements. So yeah, I found that character easier, and but really enjoyable, I think, because he was so well written. And there was so much sort of comedy within the lines as well, in a really is it pathos, is that the right word? I don't know. But so it was beautifully written, and and it was a pleasure again to work with Tom.
As an American, you said something earlier I want to go back to real quick. Is there a divide in Britain from the north to the south? Is there like a little rivalry?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there always has been. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's interesting in that the north has always, I mean, classically been, because it's not, I mean, obviously, you know, I guess there's a classic divide, but it's not always that way. Do you know what I mean? But I guess, yeah, you know, throughout history, and certainly I think during the 80s here, when we had sort of Thatcherism and different things like that, and the Conservatives kind of right-wing government that we have in the moment. I don't want to get into politics, but I guess we had, there's a thing of the northern working class man or woman or families. Do you know what I mean? And then the kind of southerners being older, I suppose, and less working class and sort of more capitalist and more commercially minded and those kind of things. And the north being kind of more left wing, was traditional, I suppose, and the whole London thing that I suppose people think that London's a bit. I mean, I personally don't find that. I think it's more of a cliche these days. I think places are a lot more multicultural. And I love living in London. I think there's a great big mix of different people. I don't find it to be a very cold place, but there is the kind of there it is perceived as that kind of divide, I think. You know, but
just very interesting to me. I guess I've never really thought about it from that angle. So because we definitely have that in the States, as Lauren knows, like it's the South, and a lot of it is old school thoughts. Like it's not necessarily the way it is now. I mean, there still are differences, but
I think society has kind of changed a bit, hasn't it? But I was saying it was interesting. I had a friend from Italy who came from Milan, and they were very the other way round. So it was as opposed to as the divide, I guess, would be north and south, with the north being colder and more kind of capitalist and all this kind of thing, and the south being more working class. Over there, the north and south are different. So the south is seen as more kind of working class, and the north is like Milan and stuff. They're into fashion and do you know what I mean? And how you look and how you present yourself is important, and what kind of clothes you wear, and I suppose those kind of things. But yeah, I think the old version of the north, where people were wearing flat caps and you know, they had whippets and everyone was kind of miners and things, is not. You know, is a definitely a stereotype. I mean, and look at, I guess the Midlands is really where Tom is from, and there's a great scene in Kidderminster, a great like sort of UK independent horror group of directors in Kidderminster that are great. I've worked with Baz Hancher, White Raven Films, and Tom, obviously, Carney Films, and I mean they've just got a lot, and Kieran, they've got a lot of different directors in that area, which are great.
Actually, speaking
sorry, I'm babbling now.
No. Speaking of White Raven Films, you mentioned it. You were in Axel Folken as well.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
I'd love you to tell us more about that, because that was a fascinating film to watch. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, so basically, Axel Falcon is a remake of Steve Sibley's films, with which starred Ken Mead, who I've been lucky enough. Hang on, I've got one of them here. Oh yeah, yeah, which is he plays this character called Axel Falcon. This is one of the ones I've seen, The Last Zombie Hunter, which I found so funny. This was before I really knew Steve Sibley, but I found it so funny. I watched it at Horror on Sea. It's one of those rare things where I was actually crying with laughter when I came out of the film, and I had to find the director and find Steve and sort of say to him, "Oh God, I absolutely loved that. I'd love to work with you." But yeah, so it's a remake of that, in that it includes different elements of, I think, of a lot of different kind of Axel Falcon films in it. I might be wrong, but yeah, and it's sort of obviously done on a bigger budget. Do you know what I mean? It's still not a huge £1 million budget, but the fact that it was done on a low budget was amazing, really, Lauren. As you would have seen with all the outfits, the sci-fi and the
the
sort of
special
robots.
effects and
Special effects, yeah, it was incredible. So yeah, there was a joy in that, taking Steve's kind of character and scripts and then doing it on a bigger budget, I suppose. But yeah, that was great fun to do. Yeah, I was really really pleased to work with them. Yeah, it was kind of high camp and kind of kitsch, I suppose, and brightly coloured, and didn't take itself too seriously. It was just great fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed working with them and being involved on that. Yeah.
What kind of kill scenes have you? What are your favorite kill scenes that you've been a part of in different movies?
Right. Yeah. So yeah.
I love a good kill scene. So I gotta ask that.
I mean, I've been killed numerous times. In fact, I've probably been killed in more films that I haven't been killed in. And I was recently, I was thinking recently, because obviously I did Axel Falcon, which basically my other half, Michaela, ended up stepping in, and she was the Candy Skull assassin who ended up like kind of slitting my throat and the blood pouring out everywhere. And what else did I do? Yeah, obviously in Fausti's Burnt Flowers, I also got my throat slit, which was also great fun. And in Deadly Display, I hope I'm not ruining this one. But yeah, in Deadly Display, I got whacked around the face with a wrench that kind of kills me. So yeah, I enjoy doing all those things. To be honest, yeah. And I got my head chopped off as well in Slasher House 3 recently, which was fun to do. I love them, Chris. Yeah, to be honest, yeah, I think I love getting killed on the screen. I think there's something nice about it. The nice thing about it is that it's not like classical reality. You can actually stand up afterwards and go, ha ha. That's still alive.
Do you have a way you would love to die on screen that you think would be really fun?
Ooh, I don't know. Exploding? That'd be quite good fun. Bits of me going everywhere. I don't think I've ever done that. Eating an explosive device, maybe. No.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think if I've been shot. I think I've shot myself. I think that was in Bordello Death Tales. I think I played Russian roulette. I'm pretty sure did I kill myself in that? I know, I can't remember. Or no,
we have to watch to find out. See, we want to.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I won't spoil anymore. Yeah, I got my throat ripped out in one as well by a vampire. Well, kind of demon vampire type thing. That was good fun. That took me back to my influences, sort of like Hammer horror stuff. I think getting your throat ripped out by a vampire is a nice way to go.
Man, throat ripped out, a couple. Slicing throats and a head decapitation. Your neck could have its own IMDb page.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's definitely undergone some. I think I've probably been decapitated more, or had my throat slit more than anything else.
Okay.
Which is always fun. I'm trying to think of any other. Yeah, I've had so many deaths.
You mentioned Hammer horrors a few times now. We always like to ask sort of those movies you watched that made you fall in love. But so, what were some of your favorite Hammer films?
Yeah, so I was trying to think of all this morning because I was kind of thinking, you know, you love them, but what are your kind of favorite ones? Do you know what I mean? I mean, Dracula, Prince of Darkness, yeah, I suppose, yeah. I mean, I love Christopher Lee is like one of my great heroes. So, you know, yeah, I mean, I love all the Amicus ones as well. Hammer horror. I mean, even like sort of Hound of the Baskervilles, which you wouldn't necessarily say was a horror film, I suppose, but with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in. For me, anything with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in as a kid, because as I say, I used to have a little black and white TV in my room. And then, like most teenagers, I mean, people always complain about teenagers' screen time nowadays, but I would be up, you know, late at night tuning in, and you had to tune in with a dial to try and find where the Hammer horror movies were on and putting the volume down low, maybe putting a sheet over the top of the TV to watch those movies. I was trying to think of, hang on, because I did make some notes just in case I forgot. Yeah, so I would say, yeah, Dr. Terrace, House of Horror from Amicus, The House That Dripped Blood, The Skull. I used to love all those ones. And then Dracula, yeah, The Curse of Frankenstein, The Mummy, The Curse of the Werewolf, which of course had Oliver Reed in, who was another kind of childhood hero of mine as an actor as well. And yeah, all those, yeah. And then there was, yeah, of course, The Devil Rides Out. To the Devil a Daughter, because I've got some of those here. Yeah, because I was also reading Dennis Wheatley books.
I'm going to ask you a really nerdy question then that probably like 2 listeners care about. But were you? I saw To Devil a Daughter before I read the book. Were you surprised how different those 2 are?
Yeah, they're very different, aren't they? Yeah. And yeah, I'd read the book before I watched the film. Funny enough, I believe, yeah, because Mum had a collection of Dennis Wheatley, and I always liked the front covers.
Yeah.
As a kid, it was kind of like you know, they were kind of exciting. You'd look at the photo on the front cover and you think, God, wow, this. I'm sure I shouldn't be reading this. So yeah, they're very kind of different beasts, aren't they? Oh, actually, this was something. Hang on, I'm going off on a tangent after you've asked that question. But yeah, I've got here my little. This is a comedy prop. This is my homunculus in a jar called Zosimos, and it was actually I first read about what a homunculus was in Dennis Wheatley, I believe, as a kid. Yeah.
There's one in Devil Rides Out, right?
Yeah, is it The Devil Rides Out? Yeah, it might be.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, that had a big influence on my kind of crazy brain, I think.
So, what are for those of us who haven't seen what you guys are talking? What is a homunculus?
A homunculus, yeah. So, well, it's kind of like yeah, it's a bit like a golem. If you've ever heard of a golem, in some ways, yeah. So, a golem is kind of like a clay creature. Which I think comes from Judaism, kind of you know, the more mystical side, and that you basically put a parchment in with a thing on, and the golem then comes alive, and you can use it as a you know, or the sorcerer can kind of use it to go out and do stuff for them. I think there's a very famous black and white film, isn't there? The Golem. But then, yeah, homunculus is very different. In basically, it's kind of the idea of becoming God in some way or another. In that you can use kind of mud or clay or whatever, I suppose, as well. But then there's a ceremony that goes with it, which which includes all sorts of. There's loads of different ways of doing it, but sort of like, you know, an egg laid by a black hen, you know, and do you know what I mean? And you sorry, I don't want to go too dark. And yeah, you might put some bodily fluid inside it and stuff, and kind of, you know, it's got to be done at midnight, and there's a ceremony involved, and then a little kind of man or little creature, it doesn't necessarily have to be a man as far as I'm aware, kind of comes alive and then becomes like a little kind of human. Yeah, I was actually quite obsessed with. I did this painting. I'm quite obsessed with homunculuses, and I did this painting of my friend Dan, who sadly died. And this is a little homunculus
That is so cool.
Yeah, which
That
is
is
like
cool.
it's the little in this case it's the little man that's inside his brain. Because we have that little voice that's inside our head, so yeah, his homunculus is kind of like the little a version of himself that's kind of talking to him. But yeah, they're quite creepy. Yeah, they're quite a creepy idea. I guess I find them quite fascinating and scary. The fact of you're making a little kind of human, that's kind of a mirror of yourself in some ways. Yeah, it's kind of a creepy thing. I don't know if there's been many homunculus films.
I was gonna
Out
ask
there.
because I know you write. Are
Yeah,
you thinking of writing a homunculus film then?
I'm not. I might now. Uh, no, yeah, I wish. No, I wish it was a horror. I mean, I've used my homunculus a lot. I use it as a prop on stage in the comedy. But yeah, in terms of, I've never written a horror movie. I've got some ideas, but I'm always like at the moment, as I say, because I'm working on a comedy version of Dante's Divine Comedy. That really does take up most of my time. In fact, the first, Inferno took me about 4 years, and then working with Al on kind of like the final script. And the Purgatory script I'm working on at the moment is taking me a further 4 years, getting on towards 5. And then I've got to then do Paradise. So, yeah, I don't really have a lot of time for writing anything else, if I'm honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if not a lot of homunculus films, but you've been in many films. What is your favorite location that you've had a film in?
Ooh. Well, we did. This is an interesting one, actually. I used to work when I first came out of university. I worked in an old Victorian psychiatric hospital, and I was on an assessment ward there. They lacked a lot of funding and stuff, and they were kind of closing down these old institutions. And so there you would get, I remember going down from my ward, which is an assessment ward, and I was basically an occupational therapy assistant, unqualified, but I kind of, entertained the people on the assessment ward really every day, which was intense, but really ended up being really good fun, and they were lovely people. But yeah, sometimes you had to walk from one ward to another to collect a patient, and there were these long corridors that were just empty, and you'd see like a shoe laying in the corridor, and you go past these empty rooms, some of which would have been padded cells. The ceiling was incredible in that it had hexagons. It had a hexagon design. So I was kind of thinking, do you know what I mean? If you're in a psychotic state, the last thing you need to do is look up and it feels as if you're in a hive, I mean, it's just really bizarre kind of location. And then years later, Pat Higgins was looking for a deserted psychiatric institution to film Killer Killer in. Well, at that point, the psychiatric institution I'd worked in was being transformed into luxury flats. Because they'd basically thrown all the patients out into the community, which is a great idea for them. And not, I mean, sarcastic, by the way. And they, so it was just in between. So the wards and the corridors were all empty, and they were doing some building work on some of the site, but not all of it. So I actually phoned up the Countryside Properties, I think they were called, or something. Not that they need the publicity, to be fair. That were gutting and changing the inside. And I said, well, a friend of mine's looking for a location. Managed to get in contact with them, then put him in contact with them. And then we ended up filming Killer Killer in the psychiatric hospital where I'd worked.
Wow.
Yeah, but was now completely deserted. And I mean, that was an epic location in regards to, I mean, Al Ron, my comedy partner, was the director of photography on that. But yeah, it was kind of creepy. And there was also, I mean, I knew my way around a lot of the little back ways and wards and stuff. So there was my friend Sam, who was my former comedy partner, used to work there with me. He works in a ward with some severely kind of demented patients, some of which, found it hard to know what their own name was, but there was one room on his ward that they all refused to go into. he'd try and get them in there to do sessions and stuff, and none of them had, however kind of delusional or whatever they were, they wouldn't go into this one room. And he found out that it used to be a padded cell. And when you did walk in, I took Pat down there, and I think he did some behind the scenes on Killer Killer. When you go down there, for me, whether it was because I knew it, it's really hard to tell, isn't it? But I kind of got a shiver down my spine, as you walked into the room, a kind of pins and needly kind of weird sensation when you went in there. And I guess, that was a great location. And I think, Pat and Al made it look really good. We also, do you want to hear about a ghostly experience in there?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we had a sound man called Magic, who used to be one of the Milky Bar Kids on TV, I believe. We had two, Magic and Moo. They were lovely, lovely guys. And I think they'd worked at the college that Pat kind of lectured at as well. They've both gone into the creative industry now. But anyway, we were in this corridor, and we were there waiting to do a take. As far as we knew, all the cast was sat kind of in one area where there were drinks and food and things like that. Pat's just about to go for the take, and then he's like, and then soundman's like, no, hang on, no, there's somebody coming the other side of the door. I'd heard the footsteps, so Pat's like, okay, so we wait. No, nobody comes through the door, and then and Pat said, okay, look, if you're coming through, can you come through, please? We're trying to take over a shot. There's no answer. So Pat walked over to the door, opened the door. There's nobody there. And then he walked down the corridor. No one. But the sound man, and I had been recorded, had heard the footsteps walking along, coming right up to the door outside. But there was nobody there.
That's quite cool.
Yeah, there was also some conspiracy theories with that one as well, with that there are orbs. So I think there used to be some footage on YouTube of a scene from Killer Killer where there's orbs moving through the room, which is supposed to be kind of like the souls of people moving throughout the space. I mean, I think it was very dusty there, so. But I don't know for sure. But I think that was definitely a very kind of creepy, strange location. I'm trying to think of any other weird.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah,
that's a pretty good one. I'm not going to lie. Now people pay top dollar for flats there, but it's still a little spooky.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and there were tunnels underneath it as well and things.
Oh wow!
Which Pat filmed, got access to, and filmed a couple of scenes in. It was very dark though. That was the thing, and obviously on a low budget, he had to get this one really bright light that you kind of had to ramp up, and then it would just go like that. And light it, and then it would run out of power in like about sort of 2 minutes, and then you'd be like, okay, we've got to charge the thing up again.
Oh man. So when you've done quite a lot of like different budget things, do you quite enjoy the challenges and the improv of the low budget filmmaking?
Yeah, I love low budget, and I think it's just because it becomes like a kind of family, of all the people on set trying to overcome all these problems and working together in order to overcome them. Do you know what I mean? So there's a sense in which it's kind of like what's that thing? Oh, Stockholm syndrome, isn't it? Everyone's kind of they're all in together, and you're kind of bonding because you're trying to do all these things. So yeah, I think like certainly working with Stephen Sibley on Falcon is that he's doing Falcon the Slayer, that is, which I think will probably take a while to. So just to describe, that's a sci-fi kind of what would you say, sort of yeah, epic. It's got everything in there: horror, sci-fi, fantasy. So we've got sort of sword fights. It's set in loads of different dimensions. Comedy as well. It's got really everything in there. But he's basically doing that on zero. so so the ambition to do that is incredible. And then overcoming all the issues. Of trying to get a load of people in. But what was lovely about that was obviously he's got friends in the local community that know him as a filmmaker and a low budget filmmaker. So people would turn up. Like we had a guy turn up who worked for the local reenactment society, and he turned up with a load of swords and outfits and stuff. So that people could obviously let's phone the police and let them know, but where people were like they're sword fighting in the woods, and all sorts of things like that. So people come out of the woodwork and everybody mucks in and helps out together, and there's a nice community feel with it. I do really like independent filmmaking, and people, and especially with the community now. And everyone mucks in and helps each other to overcome these problems. So if you go on any kind of UK independent horror set, you'll get other people popping up on that set who are film directors themselves, but they don't mind mucking in, and whatever it would be, from mopping up blood to, to doing the sound, holding the boom, or working behind the scenes. Everyone kind of works together, which is a lovely kind of feeling, because it's kind of like we will make this film. It is going to happen, which is nice.
Definitely seems very, not tribal, might not be the right word, but I definitely like hearing the stories with people on set, because there always seems to be that kind of, look, we're all, it doesn't matter what kind of the role is, we're all in this together to get this made, to get this done. So always a lot of fun to hear.
Yeah, there's no kind of ego involved, I don't think, and I think and then that harks back to the Hammer horror days, because actually I was lucky enough to meet Caroline Munro. She was in Pocket Film Superstitions, and when I was a kid, obviously, she was an icon. She was in the films that I watched. But I'd heard stories where Christopher Lee would drive a minibus and pick people up and drive them to the Hammer studios, to make the films and different things like that. And I was talking to her about that. But the weirdest thing about that was, obviously my name's Cy, C-Y, which is quite unusual. But I was named after a guy called Cy Grant, who was a calypso guitarist from the 70s, who also had some odd roles in some small kind of Hammer horror films and different things like that. And I was talking to Caroline Munro, and then I said, and she said, "Oh, Cy, that's a lovely name." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I was named after Cy Grant, this calypso guitarist." There's me going on. And she was like, "Yeah, of course, I knew him. He was in Journey to the Earth's Core. He was the head caveman." And I was like, "Of course he was." And I was like, "Oh my god!" And my mind was like, "Ah." That was incredible, because I suddenly thought, God, the guy I was named after, she was in the film with him, and it was just, I was like, oh.
Very cool. And now you're in the film with her, so it's
which is amazing. Awesome. I mean, I'm not in the same scene as her, but don't worry about that. I'm in the same film.
Exactly.
And I also got to work with her daughter on These Burnt Children in Video Shop Tales of Terror, Georgina. And she played the fortune teller in in that as well. And she wore a lot of her mother's jewelry that her mum had worn in some of the Hammer horror movies and things on set. And she was brilliant, and she does look, she's very striking, but does look quite similar to her mum as well. So it was that was kind of that was lovely as well to do that.
That's amazing. Is there some part of you deep inside that's the little kid who watched Hammer movies that then goes, "I'm in a movie with Carolyn Monroe," and can't get over it?
I mean, me and I mean, Tom made Pocket Film Superstitions. He obviously filmed. He worked with Caroline, but we were both at Darkfest, And he was like, oh, I'll introduce you to her. And I was like, oh, yeah, please, yeah, if you would. And he's kind of like, oh, and I'm like, what, were you going to introduce me? And he's like, yeah, I'm a bit nervous. Yeah, we'll go over in a minute. And I'm like, oh God. And so the two of us are like two little schoolboys, like, oh God, can we interrupt her? She looks quite busy. Oh, like that. And she knows, like creeping up and saying, oh, hi, Caroline. So we were just real, yeah, sort of overwhelmed fanboys, really. But yeah, she did it. She signed. My son is doing a PhD in film studies, mainly focusing on horror films. But yeah, he one of his favourite films growing up was The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Which was like a Ray Harryhausen, did all the different. I'm sure you must have heard of it, where they had the kind of cycle or seen it. But yeah, that was his. Instead of choosing to watch more modern films when he was a kid, we'd be getting out the VHS of The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, which he loved, and Caroline Munro obviously is in that. So she signed a photograph my son Dylan likes from Caroline and stuff, and it was a photograph from that film, which was able to give him for his 21st birthday, which was lovely, really nice. So I'm getting fanboy-y now. But.
Yep, that's awesome. Do you have more recent horror movies that you feel like they kind of hit home for you that you like to watch? You mentioned that you like to go back to the Voyage of Sinbad, but and go backwards, or the Hammer horror films, but the other newer ones that you're like, that hits the mark, or I would go see that in a theater.
Yeah, so I've been watching we watched a documentary the other night on folk horror, and sort of a resurgence in folk horror, and I really like The Witch, which I suppose isn't that modern. I really enjoyed that. Ben Wheatley's A Field in England.
Oh, trippy! Whoa.
Yeah, which I don't know if that's essentially a horror. I don't know. It's a difficult one, isn't it? But I really love that one. Yeah, I was thinking. Hang on, I'll write some notes here because I always forget otherwise. What kind? I've not written very good notes, so I don't really. Oh no, look, it says The House of Usher, Mask of Red Death. So basically, no, I hate them. I don't hate modern horror films. No, I've watched a lot more recently. I watched one last night called Jug Face, which is a kind of, it was mentioned in the documentary, so I've now got a huge list of these folk horrors. Yeah, and that one was, I really enjoyed that. One was very kind of strange, and I'm assuming done on a reasonably low budget as well, but actually they made really good use of it. It actually had Sean Young in it, who was in Blade Runner.
That's cool.
That's one of the ones. Yeah, she's in it. But yeah, that's I would say that's definitely worth a watch. Disturbing.
Jug Face. Okay.
Yeah, Jug Face. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's quite a good one. I'm just trying to think of any others. No, I mean, I think most of my sort of influences probably are. I'm showing my age, aren't I? Are probably quite old. I know because I was right. Just in case I was writing a list, and then most of that list has just then basically gone off into older horror films.
There's nothing wrong with that, though.
No, not at all. No, I mean I do watch modern horrors. Yeah, for sure. I guess the older ones. I suppose it's like I haven't seen Saw.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, which I'm looking forward to seeing. I think I'd probably really enjoy it. I guess maybe like stuff that's really horrid and scares me and actually scares me. I don't. I have to be in the right frame of mind to watch them. In order to do that. And so therefore, but then there are other ones, like David Cronenberg, for instance, which I kind of grew up with, and I loved kind of a lot of his films, and the sort of latex body horrors, like From Beyond, and all those kind of ones as well. Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, modern horror. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, loads of modern horror.
I think we've been talking a lot with people, and it's true that, like, especially if you get really into horror, modern horror, it's a little bit harder to impress you because when you were a kid and you saw a horror film, it could get to you. You believed more in things. A Hammer horror could be really scary on a level that if you watched it now, it just wouldn't be. And so it
Yeah.
touches you differently when you're older, I think.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I guess you're a little bit more, sort of distant to it, or it doesn't affect you quite so much. Yeah, so maybe sort of psychological things I find more horrific than gore. I don't really find, because you know it's not real, I suppose. I watched the more recent sort of Evil Dead ones. The second one I enjoyed more than the first one, which I thought was good. But at the end of the day, like sort of Bruce Campbell's like a really, is a hero of mine. And I love Sam Raimi as well. So that it's kind of like that's never gonna have the same effect on me. I mean, I watched the more modern Pet Sematary one. I love Pet Sematary, and I love the book of that. Obviously, read a lot of Stephen King when I was young, but the old Pet Sematary, it's just I've just got a fondness for it. I did find it horrible at the time. I suppose some aspects to it is pretty nasty, isn't it? Pet Sematary, I think, with a little kid getting hit by the truck and all that. But then there are funny aspects to it as well. I always find it's got the guy in that used to be in the TV series. You know, used to play not the Addams Family, the other one.
Oh yeah,
Munsters?
the Munsters,
Munsters,
dad.
yeah. And he's in it, isn't he? As the old man. But it's always funny because it's like that setup right at the beginning. Where it gives it away, because he's just like, oh, you don't want to go down to that road there. You don't want. You're like, yeah, the kid's gonna die on the road. I mean, I read the book anyway, but you're kind of like, you are kind of giving that away here. But I kind of like that because it does make me laugh, and I remember laughing about it after we'd seen the film.
No, definitely. I'm aware that we've been a little over an hour, and I don't want to keep you for too long. But I want to make sure that we give you the chance to talk about stuff that you're in that's coming up that people can keep their eyes out for.
Yeah, cool. I'm nothing. No one wants me today. I mean,
I know you have comedy shows coming up. I'm going.
I've got comedy shows coming up. Yeah, we've got a new bunch of comedy shows which are on at the Museum of Comedy, which is a lovely location in central London, and they're the hour-long improv shows. First one's on Saturday, 16th of March. It's an unusual Saturday show, which is good. And then we've got one every month on a Thursday. Yeah, in terms of films I'm working on, obviously Falcon the Slayer is like a constant. I think that's going to be going for a while, Steve Sibley's one. But I would recommend that people look out for that when it comes out, because I think it's going to be a crazy roller coaster ride, that one. I've also been doing a Final Exorcism, working with Sam Mason Bell and Jackson and the whole Trash Arts crew, who are wonderful, which has been... great fun. It's very kind of naturalistic in some ways. I won't give too much away, but then I think there's some kind of twisty bits in there as well. And I'm doing some filming with Andy Elias from Cy Henty, which I'm really looking forward to. I've not worked with him before. Hopefully, anyway, I think so, unless he changes his mind after seeing this interview. I'll be working with him, and I think I might be doing some more with Alex Patterson Churchyard if I'm lucky, coming up this year as well, which would be great. Quite a lot of things. I think Final Exorcism I think will probably be ready for next Horror on Sea, if anyone knows about that, which is a great UK festival for independent horror. And really good fun, a really good networking opportunity for the kind of UK independent horror filmmakers as well. Yeah,
actually, Chris is hoping to be out here for that next year, so we'll get to actually see.
Oh wow, awesome! Oh yeah, well that'll be cool. Yeah.
That's my plan.
Yeah, that is a wonderful friendly festival with a lot of really lovely people there. It's really welcoming. Again, like I say, it's that UK independent kind of horror family, where everybody's kind of welcoming, and there's not too much ego involved, and everyone's trying to work together towards a kind of common goal, which is really nice.
I love that. I feel like this went by too fast. So, Chris, do you have any last questions before we have to let poor Cy go?
I don't. We should probably let him go. It was a great conversation. We'll have to have you on again and just keep.
I mean, I could babble on forever, probably. there's so much to say in terms of like sort of in terms of horror as well. And next time I'll write down and remember some of the modern horror films that I've watched. Maybe
no shame in that at all. Nightmare on Elm Street is still my all-time like scariest movie to me, and we've watched it again with my children. And I'm like, it still gets me because I remember being 9-10 years old watching it, where my kids are like, yeah, I've seen this on YouTube, like I've seen worse than this, like
exactly.
That's the thing, scary.
Because Wes Craven I think he did Children of the Corn as well, didn't he? That was in the folk horror thing. Did he?
I think so. Yeah, I think the first one.
Yeah, which is a really great one. Yeah, he's a great film director. Yeah, and Nightmare on Elm Street, I really, I love all those kind of classic old ones, like The Exorcist, The Omen, The Shining. I think is another great horror film. Although some people don't like it, but I do. Yeah, I think so. I think it's an incredible achievement, The Shining. I remember showing it to my grandmother once. By accident, absolutely terrified.
Oh,
my parents had gone away, and I had it on VHS. They'd gone away on holiday, and she said, "Oh, have you got any good films you could see?" I was like, "We've got The Shining." And she was sat in the corner like, oh, God, why are you doing this to me? And I got told off when my parents returned for traumatizing me.
That's great.
Oh, wonderful.
That's interesting you say that, actually. I will say one last thing. The Shining, that's interesting. My son, he's 14 now, so probably when he was 10, the movie came out called Ready Player One, and it was Steven Spielberg, and it was a world where like you're in video games and everything's kind of open. There's in the movie, they're looking for this key or something, and they have to go into the Shining movie.
Right.
My son loves that movie except for the Shining part, and used to fast forward through the Shining part. So he was scared of the Shining part. I'm like, well, that's interesting because The Shining never scared me as a kid. I mean, I thought it was very cool, and like the woman turning into like the skeleton, and then like the blood hallway, like those are like kind of shocking. But I wouldn't go turn around and be like, oh, The Shining is one of the scariest movies I've seen. It just wasn't for me. But I was more of a gore person, so like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, the Halloweens. I've definitely seen Children of the Corn. That kind of still don't like going out in the cornfields, but that's
that's different. Yeah, I mean, I do like all those ones, like the sort of masked kind of villain protagonist or whatever chasing people. Yeah, I do enjoy those ones. Although I guess the difference I think with The Shining as well is that there's an interlink between a kind of dream, kind of nightmarish, kind of dream psychological thing, which I think maybe I find that a little bit scary, I guess. You see that in sort of like some David Cronenberg ones as well, where there's sort of like what's real existence and things, Naked Lunch, which I wouldn't necessarily say is a horror, but you're not sure whether it's somebody's thoughts or whether it's actually happening or what's going on. I do. Well, actually, I love all of them, to be fair. But yeah, I do like ones that are a bit kind of twisty turning. Nightmare on Elm Street definitely does that, doesn't it? Where it plays with the dream world and the actual reality, which is interesting. Sorry, started babbling on again now.
No, you're right though. That's part of the creepiness, especially because it's like you never know who's in a dream, and you don't know if they know if they're in a dream, and going on there.
Horror Inception. That's all it is.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Cy, for being on with us. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, great meeting you, Chris. And lovely.
Nice
lovely to talk to you both. And hopefully I'll catch up with you again. If not before, then I'll see you at Horror on Sea, Chris. Hopefully. But
sounds good.
Yeah, I'm always willing to come back anytime. So, cool.
Amazing.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, it's goodbye from me. Let me say my homunculus is going to say goodbye.
Goodbye from the homunculus. Thank you all so much for listening. This has been the London Horror Movie Club.
If you want to share your thoughts about this episode, please head to our Facebook or YouTube pages. We're grateful to Kukurbit, who made our music. Thank you for listening, and please join us next time for the London Horror Movie Club.